And man, flying with you was a blessing, number one, and a pleasure because you did a very good job. You did 99% of that flight. Tell me about that.
It's really thanks to a lot of ground instruction. We've been hard at work, like 10, 12-hour days for the last 2 weeks, mostly on the ground, and it's just a matter of practicing what they teach you.
What do you say about the pilot trainers who's working with you guys?
They're great guys. They can even keep ground school interesting when it's like 6 to 8 hours straight. They're great instructors in the air. They let you learn from your mistakes, but they don't let you get too crazy. They keep it all in check, and you learn really quickly with them.
And I noticed that not only are they good with you guys, but they leave you guys alone for a considerable amount of time and have you guys teaching each other. Tell me about that process.
Well, there's different levels of students here. Some people have actually already flown and soloed, and I think one even has a license already. And so what they allow them to do is to help us because they're not always going to be there. And they want to pass the idea of like teaching your peers so that even after this, the ones that didn't have any flight time, they could go back home and teach others the basics of flying.
Now, a lot of young people will say, well, aviation may be exciting, but it's too hard. What do you say to those young people?
Nothing's hard when you work at it, and aviation's just like that. It takes a lot of practice. There's some stuff you have to learn, but at the end of the day, it's no harder than anything else. If you really want to do it, you'll do it. It's that simple.
And I know this will be different for different students, but what area of aviation do you find the most complicated, that you really got to get down to the nitty-gritty to get it right?
Landing. Landing is a very interesting time. You know, it's a very low-speed flight. It's you got to worry about ground effect, gust from the side, keeping it level, and you got to come down smooth. You got to make sure your approach is great. There's a lot of things. Basically everything that you have to do every other time, plus a little bit extra. It's really one of the most involved parts of flight.
Now I noticed before you took off, you had a manual in your hand and you was going around the plane. What was that?
That was pre-flighting the plane, making sure that there was nothing that would make the plane not airworthy. You want to make sure every time before you go up that your plane's going to be intact on the way down. You don't want to crash because of something you could have easily just looked at and avoided. And it's one of the most fundamental areas of flight.
And I know you was going 1, 2, 3, so does that mean that it has to be done the same way every time?
It does not actually have to be done in the same way, but the reason that you do that is because you don't want to skip over anything. You can go in whatever order just like flows the best, but as long as you hit every point, check it off the checklist, you should be good.
Okay. Anything you want to tell the young people out there about aviation?
I'd like to say I'm 18. A lot of the kids in there are 16. If you're interested in aviation, get involved in it as soon as you can. Some people say I'm early, but I feel late compared to some of these. Like one of the kids in there is 16 and already soloed before. I believe you're going to interview her. But that's about it.
Okay, all right. Well, I certainly do appreciate you for the good flight and also for participating in this interview at this point.
All right, thank you.
Flying ever since I was 13. I am 21 years old right now. Just enjoying aviation.
Okay, very good. What inspired you to do it?
Ever since I was little, I was interested in aviation. I used to always play this flight simulator game with my dad. He always wanted to be a pilot as well, but didn't really have the funds to do so. So he ended up taking me to my first aviation fair at Compton Airport. That pretty much taught kids how to fly, and it was a program called Tomorrow's Aeronautical Museum. That's how I got interested. I went into that program. I didn't really have any money, so I did community service for flight time. Any chance I got, I was at the airport sweeping hangars, washing planes, anything I could do.
Would you encourage other youth to do the same thing?
Of course, of course.
All right, but some youth will say it's too hard. What do you say to those youth?
No such thing as too hard. If you want it bad enough, go get it.
Amen. Now, I just watched you take a student up, and the student did an excellent job. So that means that you guys are doing your work well.
Oh yeah, if we're doing our work well, all I have to do is sit back, relax, and the student will be my chauffeur for the next hour.
Very good. Now, when you guys, before you got started, I saw the student going around the plane. What was that for?
It's called a pre-flight. Before we take off, we want to make sure that the aircraft is airworthy. We check all the controls and make sure there's no type of major damage on the aircraft.
So I watched the student using a checklist, so that means it has to be done the same way every time, right?
Same way every time. What we do is, if the student does it long enough, what he does is he develops a flow pattern and does everything around the aircraft, checks everything, then he takes a checklist and makes sure he did everything on that checklist.
When you got to the end of the runway before takeoff, I noticed you guys sit there for a considerable amount of time. What were you doing at that point?
That was called a run-up. What we did is we wanted to also make sure that we checked the engine to make sure that the engine was running perfectly.
Okay. And then from there, it was just in the air. And the student did a good job. How do you rate his job while up there?
The student did a great job. He's actually a very nice flyer, and I hope to get him soloed pretty soon.
Okay. I appreciate you so very much for working with me today.
No problem.